Hello, everyone. Welcome. And today we are going to look at the psychological effects of drone warfare and some ethical questions behind it. So, my primary article, which has this exact same title, was published back in 2017. And the information that's in this article was gathered by a group called Division 48, which is a group of psychologists and other researchers all pursuing the field of the psychology of peace. And they gathered their information from sources such as military research reports, PTSD, sociology, psychology research, political science, and also outside interviews such as non government organizations and civilian interviews. So, with this information, this article hopes to answer, given drone warfare, what is the impact that it has on the operators themselves, their decision making, and also the impact that it has on the enemy society? So, if we look at operators, we see the effect of killing, which is common across all forms of war. But the catch here is the fact that, unlike their troops out in the field, they're generally safe in a room behind a computer screen. Because they're behind a computer screen, we see things like space and time distortion or the confusion that they feel being only a couple feet away from their screen, even though they could be thousands of miles away from the actual combat zone. We also see guilt and PTSD stem from connections that they form with their allies and also the enemy society through that computer screen. So, as far as their decision making is concerned, the biggest out of these three bullet points is bureaucratic decision making or compliance to authority. So, in this case, when you have a drone kill mission, you might have the CIA contract the position to 10 people, all for the same mission. And these 10 people are given a strict set of rules that they must follow. So, when they're out on the mission and the CIA orders to fire a strike, then they have to comply to authority. They're just doing what they're told. And because there's multiple people on the same mission, the decision to strike is a collective effort. And because of that, if there's an unwanted effect like unintended civilian deaths, then no one person is going to take all of the responsibility for that. And as far as the enemy society is concerned, we see things like anticipatory anxiety or not knowing when a drone strike is going to occur, trauma and financial effects because of the fact that in a lot of cultures, people live in large families and houses really close together. So a drone strike might injure a bunch of them and also destroy their homes in the process. So this article simply suggests that we do more research on the topic, which is fine, but I feel like it's leaving us a little short in terms of ethical questions, as this one tends to dodge those. So, to fill in that gap, I found another article called Drones, Risk, and Perpetual Force, published in 2014 by Cambridge University. So, to summarize, this article starts off very similar to the primary one in terms of describing the nature of the warfare and its effects that it has, but it also then asks us some preliminary questions which help us think about the ethics behind this. And some of those questions that it asks are: what is the actual definition of war? Is drone based violence more like law enforcement? And for that case, if the answer is yes, then we might see ethical dilemmas in terms of the rights framework. And then finally, it begins to argue that immorality arguments are going to be based on the idea that drone warfare is being used as a permanent or perpetual force in terms of managing risk versus one of war with the end goal of peace. So, is drone warfare actually ethical? So, the secondary article answers this question, like I said, by first considering the nature of the war itself and the regulations that the kind of warfare has. And it furthermore says that if the warfare can't be ruled under law enforcement or war standards, then the morality is questionable. But even then, there are too many variables to paint a clear picture because this form of warfare is so novel. So, in my opinion, the biggest issue here lies in whether or not this kind of warfare has stopping conditions. If the answer is yes, then it ultimately has the same goal as traditional war, which is truce or peace between the two sides. And if peace is the end goal, then I view it just as ethical as traditional forms of war. So, what frameworks are covered here? So, as mentioned, the primary article dodges this question, but I think the secondary article suggests a utilitarianism or act utilitarianism approach, which means the idea that occasional rule breaking when it betters society as a whole is generally okay, as the professor said in class. So, in this case, the violence might be the rule breaking brought by the drones, but it may be accepted if the overall outcome for society is positive. But if it's not positive, then it may not be accepted. So here are my discussion questions for you guys to think about on Slack, and I appreciate you watching this.